The following is a presentation from the MJCast, the internet's premier podcast on all things Michael Jackson.
I'm a Black American. I am proud of who I am.
Together, we can make a change in the world.
I want to see you!
I like to take sounds and put them under the microscope.
There's a driving bass, you become the bass. Let the music write itself.
I don't sing it if I don't mean it.
Welcome to the MJCast, your source of news, discussion, and interviews on the King of Pop.
Hello, and welcome to episode 160 of the MJCast. I'm Charles Thomson, and I am joined today by Taj Jackson. Taj, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Good. What time is it where you are?
Right now it's officially 2:14
p.m.
Yeah, sorry, I should say that. PM.
On a Saturday. So you've
Saturday
given up your weekend to speak to us.
Of course. Yeah, this is free time for me right now, so I'm happy to be here.
What would you have been doing if you weren't here? What have we dragged you away from?
Probably watching a documentary or two, or probably I don't know what I'd be doing. I'd probably be upstairs playing with my kids as well.
Well, it's the first time you've joined us on the show since your new daughter, Tylee, was born.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
How is she doing?
She's amazing. I mean, she's less than 2 months old, and she sleeps most of the day. And then at night, she either sleeps through the night or she has like one of those nights where she's crying all night. So it's kind of a toss up, but that's what babies do at that age. So kind of used to it. I feel very blessed with 3 kids, to be honest with you. It's still surreal.
Is 3 the end? Was that your goal, to have your 3 T's?
Yeah, that was actually always the goal with me and Tiana, because she, is a triplet, and so she's used to 3. I was used to 3. 2 never sat right with us, and so we decided we wanted to go for a 3rd, and I'm very happy we did. And that I just know 3, and I know the dynamics of 3 in that, so it's really cool. It's kind of like history repeating itself. And the crazy thing is too is that it's just they're all girls, and that way. And my dad had all boys, so that is the difference in that.
And how is Tiana doing?
She's doing great. I mean, she's obviously up at night, with the baby, but besides that, she's doing really well. As I said, we just feel really blessed to have 3 incredible daughters.
We've just seen the photographs going up of your visit to Vegas a couple of days ago. We're recording this on the 2nd of September. So obviously a couple of days ago is the Blue Sapphire celebration in Vegas. So how was that?
That was great. I mean, it was a lot of fun. Vegas is always a lot of fun for me because we did have the option to record this earlier, and I wanted to make sure we recorded this after Michael's birthday and after the celebration so that I could kind of talk about it a little. But look, I get to see a lot of people and bump into a lot of people, and that's always been something that's very exciting for me. The one show was great in terms of it's hard for me because I have a critical eye, and I've seen so many shows with my uncle in terms of right beside me. And so I try and not nitpick stuff just because I know what he would like and what he wouldn't like and stuff like that. But the show itself was very entertaining, and obviously everyone there loved it in that way. So it's just something that I have to get over.
Were you there for the panel discussion with Miles Frost?
No, I wasn't. And it's not to slight Miles or anything like that. I haven't even seen the Broadway play yet, so I didn't go to that.
So that's going to be coming to probably to Los Angeles on the tour in a couple of months, and then it's going to be moving to London. So do you know if there are any plans? Well, will you be going to see it in Los Angeles when it hits you? And are there any plans for you or the rest of the family to travel to London for the premiere?
I would prefer, honestly, to go to London to see it, to be honest, because Miles is going to be performing there for that aspect of it. And I kind of feel like I missed out the first time. And so I would prefer to do that. I'm sure the traveling show is incredible as well. I think the first time I want to see it with Miles to kind of see what it was like in that way. He's extremely an incredible, cool and nice guy. I got to meet him during the Halloween party last year, and very honored to be playing Michael in that way. So I'm very excited for his success and happy for him.
So do you have a plan to come to London, or is that just something at the moment that you would like to do?
That's something I would like to do, that I would aim to do, I would say. I haven't really looked up the dates of when it is, but I will make myself available to go, and probably will try to find a way to go with my family.
You just mentioned the Havenhurst party. Of course, that's not happening this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that it wasn't happening was because it was supposed to be being used as a location for the biopic.
Mm-hmm.
However, since that announcement, we've gone into the Hollywood strikes. The Hollywood strikes have hit because of the dispute over AI and the rights that writers and actors should have over their work and over their images and stuff. So I guess firstly, is it too late now for the party to be reinstated if the biopic does end up being delayed? And secondly, is there a risk if the strike continues and the biopic is delayed that you're looking at no party next year either?
Yes to both of those things. There is that risk in that way. There's no way, I don't think, that we could do the party now. We usually start the party 4 to 5 months in advance. Usually we start in February. So that where we would be way behind and kind of playing catch up to pull off something as elaborate that we do. Next year, I'm very worried because, if the strike is still happening, then obviously that would eat in on the party happening next year as well. But I do know I have a bunch of friends in both that are actors and writers. And so, for me, supporting them is the most, I guess, my priority, if that makes sense, because the AI is a big issue of it, but it's also streaming and getting residuals and fair pay for that as well. And coming from the music side, I can tell you, that's a problem that artists have today in terms of music artists, in terms of with a Spotify or whatever, is just getting your fair share of what really, I think it's like you have to, I don't know what it is with Spotify, but you have to have millions and millions of plays to get like dollars, in that. And so it's crazy. You would think that by playing and supporting your artists that they're making bank, but it's really, it's an interesting industry.
And so how important is the party to DDJ Foundation? And what will you have to do to mitigate if you do lose the party again next year?
Well, the party is one of our main fundraisers, fundraising events. So it's very important to us. It usually helps fund the next year. So this has been kind of a hit for us, but at the same time, we're always grateful to be able to do it at Havenhurst in that way and piggyback off of whether it's Bee Gees party or a Hill LA party or whatever it is. So, we don't want to, I was going to say a saying about the gift horse in the mouth, whatever it is, but we're just happy that we get involved and are able to do it at Havenhurst. So we totally understand if Havenhurst is occupied because of the biopic.
And we'll, because when I was there in 2019, I remember I was there when Prince was talking to Hamid, and he was saying that he would like to do it one year at Neverland. But are you going to hit the same problem with Neverland if that too is a biopic location?
If it's timed at the same time, yeah, probably we would. Ideally, I mean, look, Neverland would be the ultimate place to do a Halloween party or to do any kind of fundraising event. It has the grounds for it, the space for it. And Ron Burkle, who owns Neverland right now, is very charitable in his own sense. So it could be the perfect place. I think it's just going to come to timing and whether we can work it out or not.
When the announcement was made that there was not going to be a party this year, there was it did say will be holding other events at Havenhurst instead at some point this year. But I don't think I haven't seen anything about that coming to fruition. Was that a Heel LA thing, or was that supposed to be a DDJ tie-in as well?
That was more Hill LA, I would say. We don't have any plans of doing anything at Havenhurst.
Okay. And so, talking of the strike, I guess that brings us neatly onto your project. So, will the strike have any impact on your project, or as a non-fiction documentary project, will it be effectively immune?
The only way that the strike could have affected my project, just because unless there was a writer that was WGA or there's no actors in it for that, because it's a documentary or a docuseries, would have been the DGA. But the DGA made a deal already. So the DGA is not striking. And that would have been the only hang up in that equation. So we're kind of set in terms of we don't have any obstacles in that way. Thank goodness. Because there was a lot of obstacles beforehand. So this is kind of, in a way, cleared space for us, unfortunately, at the expense of friends and people that are in the industry.
Are you in the DGA?
I am not currently in the DGA, but I will be from this project. So I am going to be in the DGA.
Oh, I see. But it would have potentially affected you in terms of, for example, cinematographers, that sort of thing.
Cinematographers are in a different union than the DGA.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that doesn't affect them as well. I mean, obviously, I shouldn't say that. It affects them because if there's no movies being shot or no TV shows being shot, then cinematographers don't have work. So it affects everyone in the industry. But in terms of with the docuseries, it's not going to hit us as hard, I should say.
Oh, okay. What would the DGA's impact? So if the DGA had been on strike, what would the impact have been for you then?
If I would have continued on, it might have hurt my chances of getting into the DGA. There's a thing called being a scab, which is where you do something anyway in terms of you kind of take that risk. I don't know any people that are writing scripts right now, but if you are writing scripts to sell to a Netflix or an Amazon or a TV channel, and the WGA found out, and you would be blacklisted from them and not be able to join them.
I see.
So it's pretty serious in that way, and it should be, because you're crossing the picket line. Luckily, as I said, the DGA made a deal already, so it doesn't affect the docuseries.
Okay. And so with the docuseries, I mean, questions are pouring into us all the time, so I'll go through some of them.
Yeah.
In fact, Elise even, I don't know if you've heard it yet, but our last episode was Elise's Q&A, and there were even some people sending questions to Elise. They obviously think Elise is your spokesperson or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously late last year, you did a couple of interviews where you said that your plan was to have the docuseries out by the end of 2023. So we're now at September. So is it safe to assume that that is no longer the plan?
Yeah, that's very safe to assume. That stopped being the plan when I heard that the Thriller documentary was going to be released fall of this year. When the state announced that, or when it was announced that that was the case, I have to be very careful not to tread on people's toes in that way and give it the space, because I'm going to be working kind of not hand in hand with the estate, but I definitely will be working with the estate for the docuseries in terms of I'm going to need music, I'm going to need certain things in that aspect of it. So once they decided that they were, and I'm assuming that's still the case, but once I found out that they were going to be taking up that kind of fall, winter time slot and releasing around Halloween, I think, then it was like, well, I can't be releasing around that time anyway. So it kind of freed me up from the rush aspect of it. But as it's looking right now, the whole 2024, because of the strike, is open. So it's not really as much of a rush. I just want to make sure this is done correctly because it's my uncle, and quality wise, it's done right because it's my uncle. I think my one prerequisite for me was always to get this out before the biopic. The reason for that was just because I knew the media would really hound the biopic of like, why wasn't this addressed? Why wasn't this addressed? It kind of gives them that freedom now for the biopic to say, this wasn't addressed, or we didn't want to go into that because it's addressed here. So why didn't you guys watch this, that Taj made, or blah, blah, blah. So that kind of, it works hand in hand with them. They can address the stuff that they want to address because there's only a certain amount of time in a biopic as well, in a movie. And so if it was up to the media, they would want the whole thing to be about allegations and all the lies and BS that we have to deal with. But for me, that's what this docuseries deals with.
By the way, as far as the biopic is concerned, the director gave an interview the other day, Antoine Fuqua, and he said the film will follow Michael's life all the way from Gary, Indiana to Wimbledon. Have you any idea what he was talking about when he said that he was going to follow Michael's life all the way up to Wimbledon?
Maybe Wembley Stadium is what he meant. I mean, we're Americans, so, if I wouldn't, he probably meant Wembley Stadium. I say that not knowing, I say that only because I know the Bohemian Rhapsody one ended on a performance from Queen. I think it was Live Aid or whatever it was. So I'm literally guessing. So no one take my word but when you said Wimbledon, the first thing I thought of was Wembley Stadium. Being American and thinking, maybe that's what he thought he said in terms of, or what he thought he heard.
I remember when Jafar was announced as the star, it must have been just before our Christmas episode, I think, because I remember that we interviewed you very shortly after, and you mentioned that you had been at Jafar's screen test or makeup test or something. It was, I think you said the day that they got him all dressed up as Michael. Is that right?
Yes and no. What Graham did was he got a bunch of the cousins together, and all of us, we watched Jafar's makeup and screen test. And Jafar was there that day too, as well. We watched it at Calabasas, or at the house that they have at Calabasas. And that's what I saw. I didn't see the makeup or screen test as it was being done, and I didn't see it prior to all my other cousins seeing it. My dad was able to see it prior, and he loved it, and he raved about it. But it was a couple months later that I got to see it, and it cleared up, to be honest, all my reservations about at least who can play Michael, because that was the biggest thing for me. Like, there's no one that can play him. That's what I would say. I didn't say it out loud. I mean, I probably did in live streams. I said that's my main concern. Always was my main concern, because I didn't want it to look like a cheap knockoff or imitation or cheesy. But what I can tell you about what I saw my cousin do, which I know what we're capable of, I guess, as we're always underestimated as Jacksons sometimes. But when I tell you, and I've said this, I had a tear that came down my eye, because it was a tear of pride, but it was a tear of this guy really pulled it off. I'm so excited for people to see that aspect of it. And so, yeah, that's kind of what happened in that way is I saw the hair and makeup test. I don't know the right terminology, but he was in hair and makeup and an outfit. And I can't really say much more. I probably said too much already, but it was honestly amazing. And it at least quieted my doubts about Jafar being able to be Michael. Now, whether or not the script or whatever, that's another thing that I'll have to see. There's so much tender love and care that Graham is taking to this. He really wants the fans and the public to love this and to really see Michael as someone that was amazing and that was taken advantage of. And so I'm looking forward to the biopic. I really am. The reason why I'm doing the docuseries before the biopic is just because it's almost like, if I can use an analogy, it's like clearing the runway from all the crap that would be in the runway. And so let the biopic fly, because the media is going to come hard for the biopic. And so if my docuseries can clear that space and all those doubts from the naysayers, or at least, have a point of reference of like, well, you didn't watch this, so, you really shouldn't talk, then that's what I want to do as well. The main focus of the docuseries is to cement my uncle's legacy. And I want to say one thing, just because it kind of bothers me. There's this misconception. I said that I was going to, in the docuseries, deal with the humanitarian aspect of my uncle in terms of the human side, because I wanted people to get to know him, because you have to care about someone in order to sympathize or empathize with someone. And some people twisted my words and said that I wasn't going to talk about the allegations or go over the allegations or attack the allegations and the court case. And that's farthest from the truth. That plan had never changed. The whole thing is about talking about, and I hate to say allegations, I call them the extortions, because basically my uncle was extorted. And so that extortion period, talking about that, and then also the court case, are two very important things for me in that way to clear up.
Now, when you talk about Graham, is that Graham King?
Yes, that's Graham King. Sorry.
So he's the producer, right, of the biopic?
He's the producer of the biopic. He's the shepherd of the biopic. He's the one that kind of has been, in a good way, taking his time and, meeting with Prince, meeting with the family, getting stories, talking to people. I'm not allowed to say. I was about to say who he's talked to, but he's doing his research and he's doing his homework. And people closest to Michael, he's reaching out to them and getting the whole picture. And so I'm very happy with that. Just need that to translate onto the big screen.
Yeah, so I don't want you to give away any secrets, because I don't want you to get in trouble. But in broad terms, it sounds like the family is quite involved then in the biopic.
Well, Prince is directly involved, so that's one of the major things there. Earlier on, it was very important for Graham to involve, people like my dad, my Uncle Jermaine, my Uncle Jackie, like the brothers, I would say, into the equation. He has a history with the brothers and Michael from the past. I don't know exactly what it is, so I'm not going to say and just guess, but I do know he does have that history. And to Graham's credit, he's been a fighter for Michael in that way in his legacy. He has the same prerequisite that I have, that the people working on whatever they're working on have to believe in Michael's innocence 100%. He doesn't want people on his crew that are negative people or that naysayers in that way. And I really respect that.
Speaking of the brothers, can I just ask how Marlon is doing?
Marlon's doing amazing. For my birthday, Terrell surprised me, and I got to talk to my Uncle Marlon, and my Uncle Jackie was there, and his wife, Emily. We did all this FaceTime. But I was so excited to see my Uncle Marlon, and I always get checkups from Terrell in terms of how he's doing. And Terrell says he leaves us in the dust. Like he hasn't lost a step, basically, and he's the first one, on the stage and the last one off the stage. Basically, got to pull him off the stage. So he's doing amazing from what I've heard.
Yeah, we saw that he was back on stage with your dad and with Jackie and with Terrell now in the group as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so that's good to know.
Yeah, I that was the first thing I asked, was like, how's he doing? And Terrell's like, man, he's outshining all of us. He's not like cutting down the choreography. He's he's a superhero in that way, in my eyes.
Are you able to say publicly what the situation is with Marlon, or is that something that the family is choosing to not make public?
I personally probably shouldn't anyway, but I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is, so that kind of helps me out. Not knowing, I don't know exactly what it is, so I wouldn't even speak on it, not knowing exactly what it is, because if I was wrong, then I'd be spreading something. I don't know exactly what it is. I just know he's doing better.
Well, that's good to know. There was a story that came out a while ago suggesting that the brothers were all going to be working with Janet on some kind of reunion TV show. Was there any truth to that, or was it a classic media fake Jackson story?
I'm not sure about that. I know that Janet announced that she was going to do another documentary or docuseries, and part of that was going to be reuniting with the brothers. So that's probably where the media story came. But I'm not, that's all I know about it. I don't know anything else besides that. That'd be exciting, though. It'd be incredible.
Back to the biopic. Have you, again, don't tell us what's in it, but have you seen the script?
I saw such an early version of the script that I wouldn't even want to talk about it just because I know it's changed so much. I mean, I saw it probably 3 years ago, so it's changed a lot. It could have had a complete rewrite and I wouldn't know. And that was before Prince really was officially on board as well. So I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about an old script that was 3 years old, knowing that it's been changed and that. But I can say that as long as they get the essence, I know that, and why I'm saying that, Charles, is only because I know that the script I read has been changed a lot to better suit who Michael was after the stories that Graham had heard from other people closest to him. So I would feel like I was giving Graham an injustice by talking about a script that prior to him getting input from the family and friends.
Yeah, no, I don't want you to tell us what's in it because you probably will be sued or certainly will be banned from seeing any future versions of the script. But
yeah, it's changed as well. But just so that you know, and I have a great relationship with Graham. Graham's awesome in that way, only because I see his passion for Michael. I see the passion of getting the story out. And all I ask for, honestly, is someone that is spearheading that believes 100% in my uncle's innocence. I feel like if that will trickle down into the script, trickle down into the performances, trickle down into the director and everything else, because he's the person putting it all together and unwavering support. And I got that. And so that's why I guess I can say this. Graham's called me up a couple of times and asked questions, and to try and get it right, and I respect that.
Do you know if any of the fans? I think the thing that pops up time and again with the fans is that they're worried because of his Bohemian Rhapsody connection.
Yeah,
and the amount of the story in Bohemian Rhapsody, which was not true. I think the fans are a bit nervous that what's going to come out the other end with this biopic is something which is not quite accurate, not quite right. So do you, again, well, I'm not asking you what's in the script, but do you know if any family members are being actually shown the script, having any input into the script, or is it more a case of Graham talking to you and getting these stories and then feeding them back to the writer? Are you having any interactions with the writer?
Oh no, I haven't had no interactions with the writer, and I, as I said, I haven't seen the scripts probably for the past 3 years. But I understand the concern of that. It's really hard because a biopic takes liberties. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing a docuseries, because a biopic in its nature takes liberties, and it's not only Bohemian Rhapsody. Majority of them do, especially if they're on someone that's famous. They'll condense stuff. They'll combine 2 events and make it one event just to simplify it for the audience and stuff like that. And I get it because I'm like that too. As a fan of MJ, of my uncle, I'm like such a stickler for the truth. And this didn't happen like that, and blah 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 blah. But that's the biopic's job is overall. They want people to come out, understanding Michael and understanding who he was, and really the beauty of Michael. I think that's their purpose, as opposed to, every one of these things is true. And that if it's something where they can combine an event and get the same thing to keep the movie going, they'll probably take that liberty just because that's what a biopic does.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, I'm thinking of, the Andy Kaufman. Firstly, most biopics I don't like. One I did like was Ray. I thought that was brilliant. I
Yeah.
loved the Andy Kaufman biopic with Jim
Mm,
Carrey,
yeah.
Man on the Moon.
Yeah.
However, liberties taken, as you say. And James Brown,
Hmm.
not very good biopic, and
Yeah.
massive liberties taken with the facts there. So I think it's to be expected. But nonetheless, it doesn't stop the fans getting antsy about it.
Yeah, of course. And I totally get it. And that's, as I said, that's one of the reasons why for the docuseries, it is all about the facts, and it is about, we're such stricklers for the accuracy aspect of it, because that is more of this happened, this didn't happen, this happened, this didn't happen. It's the truth is more important than the entertainment aspect of it in a docuseries for me. In a biopic, the entertainment aspect is more important, if that makes sense, because they want people to go and tell their friends to go watch it as well.
Yeah. Okay. So with the strike, you're a Hollywood
I'm
person.
in the heart of it with, yeah, I'm in Burbank, which is the heart
Yeah.
of, like, yeah, this strike area.
So what do you see happening with the strike? Do you see it getting wrapped up in time for the biopic to start shooting on schedule? Is it already behind schedule? I don't know what the plan was.
I think this is speculation, but I think they're like literally at that threshold of having to possibly delay it. That's just my guess of it, because I know that with Antoine, it was mainly about Equalizer 3 and giving that, the ample space before he started the biopic. But now that that's out, and promotion wise, they were going to start the MJ thing right after that. So we're really coming up to that point. I think the fact that there's not really right now ending in sight for the strike is what's scaring a lot of people.
Who is scared? Sorry. What do you mean on the MJ biopic specifically, or just in Hollywood generally?
I just mean in terms of Hollywood in general, but also, yeah, because I'll get a little political. It is the case of the big guy, or the big wig, not being in touch with reality in a way of what people are dealing with and are going through, and what a fair share is to people. I'm trying not to put my own emotions from the music industry in, but it is the same. It's very similar. What you see on TV in terms of people is, you see the top of the top that who's made it, but you don't see all the people living paycheck to paycheck, or doing waitress and waiter jobs to make ends meet, or bartending jobs, as some of my friends do, to be an actor, or to write a script. And it's a lottery thing. And so once you do make it and you don't get your fair share, and the script that you wrote, or this thing that you acted in, and someone else is making 100 to 1,000 times more than you're making off of it, and it started from you, that's could be frustrating.
Yeah, I mean it's an industry in which everybody is freelance, everybody is self-employed. There's no pension when you're an actor.
And
You just get a
expendable.
job and you get
Like,
paid for it, you know?
and yeah, and expendable, Charles. Like, that's the problem with that industry. It's almost like, oh, well, we'll just take the next up and coming person that's more hungry than you are to take your place. It really is. There's always someone that can fill in your spot, so that you're always grinding.
Yes, and so as you said, no job security, but also no
Yep.
pension. So the residuals are really important, because if you don't have a pension, which you don't because you've not been employed by a company, you've just got hired onto one production, hired onto another production, and you get paid for your time, then if those residuals are not fair, then it basically means you can never retire.
Exactly. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing that's why they're out there, is because right now with certain platforms, the residuals aren't fair right now for them.
Yeah, and that's where the streaming side comes into it, I think, isn't it? Where they have quite a good or a reasonable deal if you're on a show and then it gets sold onto cable or something.
Yes.
But if you're in a show and then it gets sold to Netflix, it gets licensed to appear on Netflix, then the terms, because nobody gave a fuck whenever the last deal was negotiated about 20 years ago, nobody knew what Netflix was going to become. It was such a distant nothing at the time. I think that's what the residual side of the argument is about, isn't it? It's about the streaming services and how the actors are basically getting a fraction of the amount for a streaming residual that they would be for a cable residual.
Yeah. Basically, yes, exactly. 100%. And I know with the streamers, they don't even have to put out the number of what a show did. So there's really no way of telling. It's almost like, me being an artist and not knowing how many albums I sold, because they have it internally, but they're not telling you as the artist how many albums you sold, so that you can't really even hold them accountable for that. And so, I mean, look, Spotify came in at the right time and iTunes was before that, but kind of really, I don't want to say save the industry from Napster, but it helped the industry in a way, because at least people were paying something. But the deal that artists get from Spotify is nothing to be proud of either. It doesn't even go directly one-to-one. So if someone streams a 3T song or whatever, it goes into a big pot, and depending on the popularity of an artist, they get the bigger piece of that pie. So it's not even like, oh, I streamed your song 1,000 times, so you're going to get X amount. It's more of like, no, that 1,000 times goes into a big pot, and then a Drake or Nicki Minaj or Taylor Swift will get the bigger slice of that pie. Rightfully so, if they're streaming millions of times more. But I'm just saying that's how it goes. So it's not a one-to-one.
I think I read that one potential consequence of the strike is that you may, in the short term, see a big swing towards documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike. So is that likely to benefit you and your project?
Both. When something becomes oversaturated, it's definitely not good. I know that there is that push for now documentaries and docuseries because of that. I don't even want to say loophole, but because they're allowed to function. I think the only thing why I'm not as concerned is because I'm doing a Michael Jackson docuseries, or a docuseries about Michael Jackson. That's 1 in a million. That's not something that everyone else can do. So it stands out on its own. Even if there's normally 20, but now there's 100 documentaries, there's still not, a Michael Jackson docuseries like that.
I think for a lot of fans, there's been a couple of developments that have happened recently which have created an added urgency around your project. So the first and most important, of course, is the news that we had about the Wade Robson, James Safechuck lawsuit, where the appeal court has reversed the decision of the original court, and as things currently stand, has said that their case can go to trial. Now, of course, it's open to the estate to go to the Supreme Court. I don't know if the estate has, I say the estate, the company is essentially the same thing. But I don't know whether it has been announced, whether there is a decision yet about whether they're going to go to the Supreme Court. Do you know anything about that?
I don't. I think they are trying to, and it's whether the Supreme Court picks it up or not. They don't have to pick up the case in that way. So it's almost like a fingers crossed and hope that they pick the case up. I think there was very much an injustice, that ruling. Definitely not fair and kind of a joke. And I think that could only happen in the liberal town of California, where it's more about perception than it is of doing what's right.
Are you essentially, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're essentially saying that this is a sort of a legal virtue signaling by the judges that they've taken this up. It's
complete virtual. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, that's a word I was probably fishing for. It's exactly what it is, because there's any judge that actually did the research and went through the prior cases, there's no way in their conscience mind judge or rule the way they did. There has to be a prejudice. There has to be a prior prejudice that allowed them to make that ruling, and so arrogantly and confidently.
I think when I spoke to you a while ago, you said that you had not watched the oral arguments, but I did watch them, and it was two of the judges did not really make any attempt to disguise their contempt for, I don't know whether it was contempt for Michael Jackson or just contempt for his legal team, but their behavior, in my opinion, as an observer, bordered on the unprofessional.
Of course,
I thought
yeah.
they were pretty rude, and made some there was one guy in particular that made some pretty stupid comments, actually. He sort of beggars belief that he's a judge. But of course, what this means is that there is now an increased likelihood that the case is going to go to trial. And I suppose there's two ways of looking at that as to whether it will be better for your series to come out before or after the trial. Because, of course, if it comes out before, then it may prime the audience so that they take what they hear at the trial with a pinch of salt. Alternatively, it could be that they see your thing and then the trial happens and that's the most recent thing they've seen and it changes their mind back again. So there would be two schools of thought about that. Has it given you an added urgency to get your project out, or would you be of the mind that actually it might be better to wait and see what happens at the trial?
This case or this trial thing has never really affected me either way. The first thing I always wanted to do with the docuseries was deal with the extortion / allegations of 93 / 94, and then the trial, Michael's trial. That was the first, I guess, importance for me. Wade and James were kind of the byproduct of what was set up from those two things. Now, saying that, because I know that some people will say, oh, he's not even going to address this or that. I know there's a Leaving Neverland 2 coming out. I know Dan is making one. And I know probably he's going to follow this trial and it's going to be poor Wade and James going against this big system. And, what are they going to do? Are they going to win? Is justice going to prevail? And, because that's all they have is being a victim, a fake victim, but that's all they have. And of course, Dan just bullies anyone that, that questions his authority and his righteousness. I don't want to get too personal, but I don't see how he can call himself a director. He really did make with Leaving Neverland, such a piece of fiction that there's really no truth to any of that. And then when he was called on it, I've never understood how he got away with editing out lies from an original piece, and the runtime gets smaller as he gets caught in these lies. And then the train station thing happens, and then he tries to defend it one way, and then he changes the word. It's really a joke, but at the same time, it's because of the virtual signaling and stuff like that. And it was just a matter of the timing. Me Too and Time's Up were at the heat of what it could be. It was perfect timing for him. I think things are a little different now. People have been falsely accused of certain things. So the audience is more aware of that false accusations do happen and happen more often to celebrities than people think they do, because some of their favorite celebrities have been falsely accused. And by the way, I know I'm going to be a subject of Leaving Neverland 2. And he's going to, because I have been someone that's been just adamant about Michael's innocence and very vocal about it. So I know that's one of the things that he's going to try and make me look really bad, and whichever way he does, or because he doesn't even care really about the truth of, and reporting the truth. But I do know that he's very aware of me in that way. And so I wouldn't be surprised if I'm part of Leaving Neverland 2. And same with, he'll take some death threat fan posts, unfortunately, or whatever it is, to make all the fans seem deranged and violent or loony. And, it's just, he's going to play that angle up.
I think one thing that has concerned the fans also is that when those oral arguments happened, it turned out that I think that was the latest indication that Leaving Neverland 2 was still happening, because things had gone quiet. But it was reported in the press that Dan Reed had been filming the oral arguments. And obviously the fans are concerned that once you have that, they saw what happened in 2005, I suppose, which was not filmed, but you had a gallery full of journalists sitting there, and somebody would walk into court and testify to all these terrible allegations, which would then be published as a front page, and the TV journalists would run outside and furiously report what's just happened. But then when Tom Mesereau destroyed their credibility on cross-examination, it got no airtime
whatsoever.
I think people are concerned. If Dan Reed is in that trial with his camera, then he'll be able to do that in a very powerful way, because whatever you think about the veracity of Leaving Neverland, it was clearly a very powerful piece of filmmaking that did cause shockwaves around the world. So I think there is a concern about what he is able to do with that footage if he goes and shoots it. Even if the trial is won by the estate, it will be possible to edit that footage in a way which is absolutely catastrophic for Michael and for the defense. So have you given any thought to whether it would be useful for your project to be in the courtroom and filming yourself, to have somebody there filming for you and your project?
Yes, I have. Without saying too much, that is a very big possibility. That won't delay my project, though, because my project will be coming out before that aspect or during that time period. If there needs to be a part 2 or something else, a follow-up, then that would probably be on the side of that aspect of it. The one thing I'm not going to do is just let Dan Reed run wild and with his lies in that. So I don't want the fans to think that I'm just going to let, a complete stranger narrate my uncle's life in that. And so there will be an answer to Dan Reed one way or the other in that. And I honestly think Leaving Neverland it was more of, I don't know if you saw the movie Saw. Saw was, or Hostel, or any of those movies, and I actually like those movies, but they're very shocking to people. It's a horror genre that's very shocking and graphic, and it's a visceral feeling that you get because it's so graphic. And I think that, in all honesty, that's kind of what Leaving Neverland had, was just graphic nature and making you feel this visceral feeling that it didn't matter that if he said the word Michael Jackson or anyone else, you just felt sick to your stomach. And so I think those are the words he likes using, words like big words like that, and shocking people to the point where you kind of have your defenses down. Now, saying all of that, I think it's a different climate and a different attitude now in terms of social media is a lot different than it was back then. People are vocal now, and people that see things with their own eyes are vocal now. The Johnny Depp Amber Heard case is a prime example of that, where the media still tried to spin it one way, but people's own eyes and mouths were like, no, you're not going to do that this time. We saw what we saw. And so I think things are just different. And knowing my uncle's fan base and the amount of people that we have there, we're not going to let that slide either. Dan Reed had a surprise attack. I mean, that's really what it came down to. No one knew Leaving Neverland was coming out. If we would have known ahead of time, we probably could have dismantled it 6 months prior if we knew what it was about. We didn't even know that it was coming out. We had 1 month to prepare for the impact. And I think that was kind of one of the things too. It was perfect timing for him in every way. And that timing is not there anymore. We're very aware. He's already bombed us once. We know how he is now. And we know the lies, and we know the strategies that he does. And we also know when he gets rattled, because when he gets called on his lies, and he folds pretty quickly in that way. As any journalist that confronts him, he doesn't have an answer to things, because it's just about blindly believing. He doesn't actually have facts.
Well, I think that you're right that there was definitely an element of shock and awe, and or kind of almost like hokum about it. It reminded me of some old-fashioned Victorian freak show or something. The way that they would promote their events,
Charles, it was the journalists saw it before the family saw it. the journal, when I went to the UK to go, and I have to be very careful with my words because I hate the words defending my uncle or fighting for my uncle. When I went to go promote my uncle's innocence, because I do believe words matter, or educate the uninformed, I should say, all the journalists that I was interviewed with or that were on, they had seen it. And I thought that was so unfair that they had seen it prior to me seeing it. And it was almost like it was strategically done that way. Almost like, okay, well, we're going to make sure you guys are going to get the head start on it and drink the Kool-Aid. And then we're going to trickle it down to everyone else. And by that time, we'll have all our ammo. We'll have a rock solid defense. I mean, we still poked holes in it and brought it down. But if you really think about it, it really wasn't fair. All those journals had seen it. The media had seen it. They even had the lady from Me Too. What's her name? I don't know.
Tarana Burke.
Yeah, and I'm so upset at her because I reached out to her privately and she never responded. But then finding out that she was there at Sundance, they gave her a special screening. It's like that kind of stuff really bothers me because you don't want to know the truth. You want to subscribe to your own, theories and what you're promoting and what you're pushing. And it doesn't matter if Michael Jackson or his family and fans get damaged in the long run. It's about you promoting what you want.
Well, it was a cheap publicity stunt, I think. And that's the thing, is that there was this very mixed messaging around it, which was, on the one hand, we're very serious filmmakers and this is a very, very serious issue. But on the other hand, step right up, roll up, roll up. This film is so shocking that we've got a psychologist in the foyer. If in case you faint, in case you collapse and you're unable, I mean, what a lot of bollocks, because they're about to put it on TV all over the world, but they're going to send a psychologist to the home of every TV viewer to monitor their reactions. It was absolute nonsense. So there was an element of the old vaudeville hokum going on there, this kind of ridiculous marketing, sort of like, this is the film so shocking that you'll have to have a psychiatrist on call, ridiculous really, and cheap, and actually undermined what they were claiming was a very serious matter,
Exactly. And it was hard.
But there's another side to it, though. So on the one hand, you did have that shock and awe element and the surprise attack. And that will be different this time. But what won't be different is the other side of it, which is the media, which will just promote whatever he does and will not question it, will not investigate it, will not challenge it. They will just promote it. So how are you going to deal with that? Because it's very difficult to win the argument when the media machine is working against you.
Well, times are different too in that way. You weren't allowed to question it back then. You at that point, you were victim shaming is the wording. I remember early on, there were a lot of people that actually came to my uncle's defense and they were destroyed by the media and destroyed by the public in that way. And it really discouraged the rest of them from defending my uncle. And I think things have changed in that way, where they're not going to be people just sitting around letting someone bully someone or beat up on someone anymore. They're actually going to step in and intervene. And I think that's the difference in that. When Leaving Neverland came out, you didn't have the option of questioning it. I had the option of questioning it because I was a family member, but the regular person, it was like you almost risk cancellation. If you don't forget, like, Simpsons took off his episode. I mean, it was all reactionary before even the truth came out of it. It was just all reactionary. And then the truth of it being a lie, it didn't matter at that point. They all had bought into the lie. But the media is going to be the media in general. But social media is very interesting in today's world because it does counterbalance and it goes faster than the media does. The Johnny Depp case was I watched that as like a hawk in that way. And the media still tried to spin it every time something happened, but people were there to course correct it and say, nope, that's not what happened. This is what happened. And it really showed their biasness and they stopped doing it. But they really did have that machine behind it trying to promote it one way or the other. And I'm hoping as well that my docuseries will already have set that foundation of, of the media lying and really taking advantage of my uncle.
Are you concerned about the fact that Twitter has been effectively destroyed? Because Twitter, during when in 2019, when the first installment of Leaving Neverland was released, was a very powerful tool for the fans and for other dissenting voices to get their message out, but it's been effectively taken over by the far right now, and the only people whose tweets get seen are crazy people that buy their blue ticks and so on. So, I mean, are you at all concerned that you have lost, or to an extent you have lost, that forum for challenging Part 2 if and when it comes out?
Not at all, because TikTok was very liberal as well. And the liberal audience, or the liberal machine / Hollywood, was the one that was probably our worst enemy. And they were the ones, I mean, if you really think about it, the Vanity Fair article that was passed around, and it was the blue ticks, the celebrities that helped pass that around, the 10 undeniable facts or whatever it was called, that came from Hollywood. That didn't come from, just regular people. That came from Hollywood, and that was passed completely down. And so I'm actually welcoming, I'm not saying it will be Twitter that is the main platform used now in terms of getting the truth out there. I think TikTok, YouTube, there's a bunch of different ones now as well. And there was a lot of conservative voices that defended Michael and spoke out against Leaving Neverland. So I'm not even going to say that that's a bad thing in that way. I'm just saying that, yeah, the landscape is completely different in terms of what Twitter was, what Twitter is now. But Twitter wasn't my friend back then at all. I saw more celebrities drink the Kool-Aid, or at least try and jump onto the trend train, than anyone. And it really was disheartening. So if anything, Twitter discouraged me more than helped me. What helped me was probably YouTube more than anything. I went on more live streams on YouTube and got the word out from that. So it wasn't Twitter at all in that way. I mean, yeah, my tweets were being seen by the fans. Maybe that was a great thing. For the fans, it helped kind of get us all together and realize our strength and see that what we were doing. But in terms of the machine was all on Twitter, and we were going up against the machine on Twitter, and they had the upper hand, and I'm happy they don't have the upper hand now.
So I think you said a short while ago that your plan is for your series to be out before the trial.
Well, I don't know when the trial is, but it is. I mean, that is the plan. The plan is for it to be before, because then it would be way more effective. So
is your plan then to have any reference to Leaving Neverland or Wade and James in the actual series itself?
I guess I should just say that, the series was never designed to be just one part, I should say. I was hoping to take on the Wade and Jameses in the second part of it, if we want to call it a second season aspect of it, because it's an ongoing thing. But I never wanted it to be part of the first part, because the first part was always about my uncle's life from beginning to end, not in chronologically. I'm just saying it was about Michael's life, what happened during Michael's life. Then season 2 or part 2 or whatever, however you want to phrase it, was going to be the aftermath of Michael's death and everything else aspect that would fall into season 2. Now it comes that because of the timing, that season 2 will probably be perfectly aligned with the trial aspect. So there'll be a lot of the trial of Wade and James possibly in season 2, and then ending with the aftermath, not the aftermath, what happens from there, because it just seems like that timing wise is what's happening. But yes, that'll be more addressed in season 2, because it's an ongoing thing. And if I try to put stuff in now, it's just going to be changed by the time that the trial happens anyway. I mean, they're not consistent with their lies. There's 4 different versions for everything that they say. So how am I supposed to put a version in there? There's always, they keep changing and they keep adding versions.
I suppose playing devil's advocate, what a fan could say is, well, you're not guaranteed to get a season 2. So if you save it for season 2 and then you don't get one, then it's never going to, you've missed the boat. So
Well,
what would your answer be to that?
I would say, well, then if I didn't get a season 2, that there's still other platforms that I could do it on. It's, whichever platform I'm on, and if they didn't give a season 2, I'd still do it. It just wouldn't be on that platform. And if I'm not guaranteed a season 2, that means I didn't do season 1 correctly, and I shouldn't be the one doing it anyway at that point. I mean, I hate to say
it might not necessarily mean that you did anything wrong, but there is obviously within the industry some reticence about Michael and about promoting Michael. So you could make a great series, but then really struggle to get somebody to air it.
Exactly.
Are you concerned about that?
No, because at the same time, the world loves Michael. And even if I have to go country to country and sell it, a season 2, I'll make sure people see it. It's the hardest way to do things, going to country and country. But if you take the countries individually, every country loves Michael. It's the media that tries to destroy Michael and his image, whether it's India or Brazil or New Zealand, Australia, all those countries. I know I could sell a season 2 in a heartbeat in that country if I had the project in my hand.
What
channel
about
will pick it up.
season 1 though? How sure are you that season 1 will even get picked up by a mainstream outlet?
I think the trick is, if I can say that, is it's Michael Jackson. And yes, Michael Jackson, they can play the it's controversial, whatever, but Michael Jackson is global. Michael Jackson is bigger than the streamers are. There's places in the world that know Michael Jackson that don't know Netflix or Amazon in that way, but they know Michael Jackson. And so I'm saying that in terms of those streamers can benefit from Michael Jackson's popularity and the interest in that aspect of it. I mean, if Dan can sell Leaving Neverland to X amount of countries in that way, and that was honestly a piece of garbage, it just had a shock value to it, then I'm not really concerned about being able to sell this.
And so what are you able to share about? So I just want to touch upon, because,
real quick, Charles, I don't want to sound arrogant, and I don't want to sound like, oh, he's so sure of himself and he doesn't know how hard it is out there. I just know that for my whole life, the media has always tried to downplay Michael's popularity, Michael's worth, I should say, time and time again, whether it's, him breaking records, his videos hitting billions of streams, or the Spotify numbers, everything is going upwards, not downwards. And so I'm very aware that they might be disconnected with what the audience wants, but I'm not disconnected.
Well, yes, certainly his streams went up after Leaving Neverland instead of down. And post-pandemic, when the Broadway musical debuted, it's become the most popular, successful musical on Broadway since the pandemic. Won the Tony Awards, won 4 Tony Awards, has consistently broken its own record at the box office, is now touring America and moving to the UK. So, yes, there is definitely truth to that. But I think you told me a story the other day about the media, about a particular journalist or something. What was that story about? A journalist that was blocked? Yeah,
there's a fan that reached out to me on Twitter and basically said that she was super excited because she was an editor and she wanted to do a positive piece on Michael, during this whole crappy thing, Leaving Neverland and whatever. And I was, I'm always open to that, but I was kind of skeptical. I'm like, do you know the media right now? And no one wants to do anything positive about Michael. And she's like, no, that we're different, blah, blah. And so she basically ran it up the chain of command. And the words she got back was that they didn't want to do anything positive of Michael, only something negative. And she had to deliver me that news. And I already knew that. And I was like, I'm like, don't worry, you didn't let me down. I kind of expected that. But that's been kind of the, people are so shocked about that. But that's been the thing with the media is they want negativity of Michael. But at the same time, it's an industry. And the media or the Hollywood will do what Hollywood thinks it can make money with. And so if they know a lot of eyeballs will see this project and a lot of eyeballs want to see this project, they will still buy this project because that's how they operate.
I don't know if I've ever told this story on the MJ cast. It seems inconceivable that I haven't, but it's not very long. But on the day after Conrad Murray was convicted in 2011, I was sat at my desk at work and my mobile rang, and it was BBC Radio 5 Live. And they said, we're doing a segment on the show about the doctor getting convicted. We're looking for somebody to come on and say it doesn't matter that the doctor has been convicted because Michael's image has already been destroyed anyway by child abuse allegations. Is that something you think you'd be able to do for us, Charles?
Wow.
And I could not believe it. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, number one, talk about victim blaming, right? That's unbelievable. But number two, it's the BBC. It is the BBC doing that. You know what I mean? I could not believe it.
That is kind of similar, and that doesn't shock. Unfortunately, that doesn't shock me, and that should shock me. But I can tell you, CNN during the trial was rooting for Michael's guilt, and I always had CNN as one of the biggest standards back then. Of like, I know globally they were probably even better, but even on at least I thought, oh well, they tell the truth. And was I wrong? Once it became about for-profit business as opposed to telling stories and getting the information out there, then it was all downhill from there. It was just the narrative was Michael was guilty, and we're going to profit off of that because it sweeps now, and this is perfect for us.
So, sorry, were you just going to say something else?
No, I was just trying not to get too upset, Charles. It's so touchy for me just because it is my uncle and it is my family. And then I think of my grandma and I think about, not only are they doing it to him, they're doing it to his mother who's up in age, and, they have no concern for how evil spirited and mean it is to make up lies about something, knowing that it's going to hurt someone. And they're doing it to his kids. And so it's just hurtful in that way. And one of the reasons I haven't been on social media or taken my time, because I've been, to be honest, worn out of it. It's like surviving a war and then coming back and like being depleted, and you have to, I just caught myself. I'm not saying I went to war, and I don't know what that would honestly feel like. I always have to clear up stuff before there's the people that attack me. But yeah, it felt like a symbolic war. Let's just say that. And I was left depleted because it was years of fighting, as the fans were too, left depleted. And it took a lot for me to gain back, not sanity, but just myself in that way. I'm very happy because the timing wise, it's perfect. It feels like there's a round 2 coming up, and I'm in the best shape ever in that way for round 2, and more aware. And so I, if anything, am looking forward to always promoting my uncle's innocence and educating, the ill-informed, uninformed, the naive.
You just mentioned the people that attack you, and that's something that I wanted to talk about while we've got you on the line. A couple of months ago, there was a big flare-up where you ended up getting quite a lot of abuse on Twitter. Recently, the developments in the Wade and Jimmy case, and then the sort of the news about Leaving Neverland 2 still being on the table, has created a new urgency from the fans about your project, which is good. But of course, there's been an element of that discussion which has been negative and accusing you of not making the documentary and saying that you've effectively pinched the fans' money and that you're not doing anything. There's no signs of progress. Firstly, what is it like for you to receive those messages? How do you feel when you get them?
They're very, very, it's very hard for me. My first reaction is, I don't want to give away my technique. It's very hurtful. I understand the frustration. So my first reaction is always to see who's posting it. If it's someone that's posting it and they really are legitimately a Michael fan / someone that just wants to know what's going on with the docuseries and why haven't I said this or that. I get it. I understand the frustration, but if it's just a hater, they get blocked immediately because I don't need that in my timeline. I don't need that negativity. And then I went on a blocking spree, and then it went around that I was blocking people that were questioning the docuseries. I didn't block anyone that questioned the docuseries except for the ones that were mean about it or that were hateful about it. That's it. And that's because I don't need that on my timeline, and I don't need that in my life. If you have a natural inquiry, that's perfectly fine, and because I would too. And so I think that was one of the hardest things, because I am human, and especially if you're a fan of Michael Jackson, who's probably one of the most sensitive people in the world, and you're doing something insensitive and saying insensitive things to a family member, and let's take away the family member part, just a human being, it hurts. And if they want to know, does it hurt when you say bad things about me? Of course it does. Or mean things about me. I shouldn't say bad things. Mean things about me. Of course it hurts. I'm human in that way. And I see those things. Even if I don't want to see it, people tag me on it, or people will like it. And it's the weirdest thing. You just see it. And Paris has had to deal with it recently in terms of you see that crap and it affects your day. It affects your week. It affects your month. I've tried not to let that affect me, but it does. For anyone that's thinking that I'm not doing this docuseries and that I would risk my reputation that I've built up for the last whatever decades off of a GoFundMe, then they don't obviously know me, and they don't know the drive and the importance of who my uncle was and how much I not only loved him but fought for him and would always fight for him. And so that's the only thing. There's no possible way, I don't care who said what, of me not doing this docuseries. That was never the case of it. It was, this has to be done right. It has to be done to the right quality, something that my uncle would expect, as opposed, because this is Michael Jackson we're talking about. And to be honest, I know there's other documentaries or docuseries coming out, but they have the luxury of, they're not under the watchful eye of the media or the general public like I am in that way. So they can move more freely. They can put things out there that only the fans get to see. If I put something out there, it's not only the fans get to see, the media gets to see it. And do I really want the media to have ammo on certain things? Of course not. So it is that push and pull of like, what do I give the fans? But at the same time, what do I not try and make the media aware of, where they can use that against me or try and get one step ahead of me? Because let's face it, there's people in this industry right now that don't want my docuseries to happen and don't want the biopic to happen. And they've made that very clear. And so I have to be careful in how I do this and how I make this. I don't have the luxury of what others do.
Are you able to be any more specific about people in the industry who've made it clear that they don't want this to happen?
Not without putting a target on my back, but you could. I think the fans could naturally guess who one of them would be. I mean, she. And I'll just say she, and then people could probably make the reference from there. And that's sad that I could say she, and people kind of would know who that is. But she's invested in this. And she was invested in the lie in that way. And I think that's unfortunate that I'm still expecting an apology, but I won't get it because of pride and because of, or at least apologize to my grandma. But that's not going to happen. And so for me, I'm making this for my uncle. I'm making this for future generations, making this for my kids, who every time I have a kid, and I'm stopping, by the way, but every time I have a kid, it's a complete reminder of how important this docuseries is. Taylor was 2 months old when Leaving Neverland came out, and I went to the UK to expose it. And it was, did I miss out on certain things that Taylor was doing as my first baby and all that? Probably. But at the same time, I'm looking at the future of like how important it will be for Taylor to grow up in a world where Michael Jackson is not questioned anymore. That's my end goal. My daughters are amazing because every day when I'm taking them to school, I know it's the weekend right now, but every day that I take them to school, the first thing they say, I want to hear Uncle Michael. And we play Michael Jackson songs. That's the first thing they've said for the last 4 months. And before that, it was I Want You Back. And before that, it was Black or White. And it's like there's so many things. It's a constant reminder of how important Michael Jackson is to the future generations as well in that. And so when someone says, oh, he just took the fans' money, he's not doing anything, I don't want to say the word smile, but I'm like, you wait and see. And I hope you're there to not being vindictive, but for as loud as you barked, I hope you also help promote it.
You just mentioned this unnamed female person in the industry who has made it clear that they don't want the biopic to happen. So are you able to say anything about what that person has actually done to try to interfere in the biopic?
I am not, but I know she's connected to the industry in every which way. So it's very hard. I mean, she's connected to the Michael universe in that way. There's people in the Michael universe that have whether written songs, sung with him, produced him, that are close to her. So it's not, it's intertwined. So you can imagine the landmines that you have to walk over to do this project, and the strategy that you have to do this project, because some people love her, some people don't love her, but a lot of people love her still.
But do you know that she has done stuff to interfere in the biopic, but you can't say what it is? Or do you just suspect that she's done stuff to interfere in the biopic?
Let's go with number 2, just to be safe. I want to say number 1, the first one, but just to be safe, let's go with number 2. Look, let's just say this. When Leaving Neverland came out, I know directly that certain people, her included, stopped me and Brandy from being on shows. So I've seen it directly happen.
So you were booked onto a show, and then you were cancelled, and then you found out that
we were canceled last minute. And then,
found out. I
found out from 2 different sources that didn't know each other that one person was behind it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just have to be careful. I want to be honest with the fans and the public to trust me, but I also know Hollywood. Let's just say that. And I know how, I don't even want to say the word vindictive, dangerous Hollywood could be at times. So I'm treading lightly, or treading carefully, I should say, because I don't want a target on my back.
So let me just ask you a few questions about documentary making generally. If you take a series which is similar to the one that you are making about Michael, for example, take the Michael Jordan series, what is the approximate budget on a documentary series of that nature?
I don't want to say my budget, but
Michael Jordan, your budget.
Okay. The Michael Jordan budget was $2 million an episode. It was $20 million budget. So basically, it was 10 episodes. It was $20 million budget.
Okay. And your GoFundMe has raised $250,000, correct? Or something in that region. So
I know where you're going. I know where you're going with it. Yeah. I appreciate that, Charles. Yeah.
What I'm getting at is you've got all these fans on Twitter who are ranting and raving. I gave you $10 4 years ago. Where's my documentary? Right? But I think that they don't understand the enormity of the project that you are undertaking. And that what you have raised, while you're grateful for it, for the fan support, it is a fraction of what you need. And I think there's just a lack of understanding about the scale of the project that you're undertaking. So can you talk, without going into the specifics of your budget, can you just give the fans an understanding of the sheer amount of things that have to be paid for and done when you are working on a project of this scale?
Well, part of it is my fault because I'm a Jackson, and that's just, I was raised that unless you're doing something different and raising that bar, then why do it? And I take this opportunity. I'm so lucky to have this opportunity. And, we're not only the Michael Jackson estate is aware of the project, but my family is aware of it and supportive, and the fans are supportive and aware of it. It's just, for me, it's the trifecta aspect of it in that way. So I don't take that lightly, but it's Michael Jackson. And the same way that the biopic is being handled, that it's Michael Jackson, it's not being done cheaply. It's being done to the best that it could be done. That's how I look at this docuseries. And I only do that because that's how my uncle looked at music videos. He didn't take the cheap route on music videos because he wanted to do something that was meaningful, that we can look at, 40 years later, as in Thriller. We're looking at Thriller as the work of art that it is. And that's because it had quality to it. It had something that no one else had seen before. And so I'm not going to say, oh, this docuseries is going to be the be all end all of everything. And it's going to be so amazing that it's going to be the blueprint. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm going to strive for that. I'm going to strive for my uncle's excellence in there, to the point where people feel like this is a Michael Jackson product, and be proud of it, and the fans be proud of it, and all those fans that donated be proud of it, that they helped contribute to this. And I want to win awards as well. I mean, my uncle would say, you better be doing this to win something as well. Like, he wouldn't just want me to just clear his name or cement his legacy. He'd want me to win something for this. And so that's how I have all those things in my head spinning around, that if I really thought about this, I probably would freeze up and not want even to take the first step. But at the same time, it's like, I was born for this. There's no other person that had certain experiences with my uncle than I did in certain things, and lived with him during the trial, was there during the first allegations. It's like, I was around for 90% of that aspect of it. And so I have a viewpoint that is very unique, minus my brothers, who were there as well, but they weren't there for the trial. So that's where I differentiate. It's such an undertaking, but it's such an honor, Charles. And I'm saying that. So all this backlash of why isn't it out? You raise it. First of all, on the GoFundMe, the amount was 777, and that was for the first episode. That was to shoot a pilot to sell the season of that. So I'm just saying that, not as being ungrateful. I'm saying that let's keep our expectations real, that for a fraction of that, you expect X amount of episodes. And so, look, I get the frustration. I get that. And I get that most people don't know me. And I've sat there with people. I even did it in Vegas, sat there for an hour with someone that had questions about the docuseries of just wanted to know, how's it going? And, and I told them, was very honest and upfront with them with everything, because I want to be. But I don't want to blast it out on social media, because that attracts all the negativity too, and all the people that don't want this to succeed. I wish there was a room that I could press that was just the good people and the positive people. And there's nothing on GoFundMe as well that I can just talk to directly, just to the donors. It's open, other people can see it. And with Leaving Neverland 2 coming out and the trial coming out and all that stuff, I just have to be more careful with my blabbing, which is why I catch myself every once in a while on this podcast.
I know that you specifically don't like to talk about the content and the editorial direction of the show. So I'm steering clear of that, but I'm just trying to give listeners a sense. Well,
first of all, sorry, because this is very important, and I know I just talked all over you, so I apologize, Charles. But I just want to say this is very important. The most important thing for me was creative control and final cut. If I didn't have those two things, I probably could have done this docuseries yesterday or whatever. I could have done this way earlier, but final cut and creative control were the most important things to me, because I have to be able to sit there with my grandma and watch this and be proud of it. and know she's proud of it, or think about my uncle sitting next to me and be proud of it in that way. And the only way I could do that is knowing that I have the final edit or final control of what gets out there. And so that is not easy to do. That's unheard of to do. And it's why it took so long, in general, because it's something that is the people like Spielberg and people like that get, not people like me. And so it was finding people that believe in this project and want this project to happen and are willing to give up those rights. That is the reason why it also was the harder journey. And I could have caved and I could have just been like, hey, I just want to get it out there. Let's just go to a streamer and here's my idea and you guys take it from here and I'll just direct it. But that wasn't what I was going to do. And because we all know what they would have done with the project. And so that is why I've been such a stickler, because I want the saying is I want the buck to stop with me. So people can directly blame me if I did something wrong afterwards, or they can praise me, either way, but it stops with me. Like I'm in control of the telling of my uncle's legacy for this docuseries. And obviously for the biopic, that's, Prince and Graham and all that stuff. But at least for this docuseries and my journey with my uncle and through my eyes, I'm in control of it. No other media or person is going to tell me what, put this in, or we need more of this or that.
So effectively, you needed external funding. And the stumbling block was that when you were going looking for external funding, you had a red line, and your red line was, I must have final cut. And it's difficult to find people that will agree to that.
It's difficult to find people that'll agree to that without trying to go to Hollywood first and pre-sell it, which at that point is you basically are giving up your final. It's like, it's a catch-22. Like if I went to the streamers first and tried to sell this, there's no way I would get final cut. They'd probably even hire a co-director on this project. So I knew, yes, I had to go external funding, and I couldn't get it from the regular places that people mostly get it in Hollywood, because there's people connected to those places. And I wanted to stay clear of that and steer clear of, I didn't want people connected to certain people part of this project. And if that makes sense. Yeah, it was the long, hard route. But at the end of the day, it's been the biggest blessing in disguise, because timing wise, it's been incredible. And at the same time, I know I can make the project that I really, really wanted to make. And I mean, it's been 4 years kind of?
Since leaving Neverland, I think it's been 4.5 years.
Yeah, 4.5 years. And I can tell you, it's not been an easy journey, especially for people, Charles, you've been part of it, that have been there from the beginning of this whole journey aspect of it. It really, you have to stick to your guns, and really that red line was that red line. I didn't care if people called me crazy or what are you doing? You're walking away from something. That red line meant the difference between telling the story of my uncle in the way that I know is truthful and that he deserves to be told, versus letting Hollywood tell his story.
I think it's interesting what you're saying, because the narrative that you get from Dan Reed when he is interviewed, he talks constantly about the powerful Jackson machine, how he and the two accusers have come up against the Jackson machine, which controls the media and controls the narrative. And yet here you are saying, I am a Jackson, I'm trying to make something pro-Jackson, and I cannot go to Hollywood because it will not happen. Hollywood will not let me make something pro-Jackson. So that in itself is interesting.
No, and I was like, and you can see who's telling the truth, because I don't know where this Jackson machine that he says, this big machine, because everything that came out in terms of with Leaving Neverland, all the lies and stuff, all of us had to fight for it to come out. All of us had to spread it. We didn't have a big machine helping us to come out. The train station lie still hasn't been reported by the mainstream media in the US. I don't know what big machine he's talking about. If anything, he definitely has the big machine that's spreading the lies. And he knows he does. That's just part of their MO.
Do you feel able to say that you're in a position where you are funded and you do have final cut without giving away any? Just yes or no. Are you in a position to say whether that's the case yet?
I'm in a position to say, I got to be careful how I say things because I don't like jinxing stuff too. I'm in a position to say that I'm so angry that I missed the 2023 cutoff because I did promise that, and I do understand that. But in my defense, when I did find out the Thriller doc was going to be released around that time period, it did make me not as urgent, to say the least, because I knew I didn't want two documentaries of Michael Jackson competing with each other in that sense, especially one of them being from the estate. That wasn't going to help my journey out. But the hardest thing has been, what do I tell the fans versus what do I tell the public? Because it's one and the same. If it was just the fans and I was at an event and there's no cameras, no phones and whatever, I could speak way more freely about everything. But I'm really telling the public as well. And in that scenario, I like being under the radar. I like people thinking, the public thinking, or the media thinking that this is never going to happen, because it keeps me off their radar. As I said, leaving Neverland, one of the biggest things that they had was a surprise attack. We had no way of knowing. We had to even search to find out what was it about. And I remember getting the information, oh, Wade is in it? Okay, who's this? Oh, there's a second guy in it? Who's the second guy? It's like we got information as it went along. But if we would have had that information prior, we probably could have dismantled it so much easier. We would have found all those lies out way ahead of time. So I do, as someone that loves yapping about kind of like the excitement of what is going on, at the same time, I'm trying to be strategic too. And there are people that I've told and that have been on social media, and I thank them for defending me, because I've told them not to say anything, but they kind of have an insight to things, and that they're on there being like, don't worry, Taj knows what he's doing and all that stuff. But I want to say, in all honesty, I get people's frustration in that way. So I don't blame people for questioning. I've never blocked someone that's just questioned, like, is this ever going to come out? Or it's just how you say it is when I've blocked people. If they're really mean and or sarcastically mean, then I'm like, I don't need that. If they're really just asking, then it's like I might private message them on Twitter and try and talk to them. But that's just really the truth of what it's been about. It's a strategy. I mean, look, no one knows what the biopic is about.
Yeah.
They're doing that on purpose. So it's like, imagine if the biopic did updates every week or whatever, like the media would pick it apart by the time it came out. But I was just going to say, but I get that people donated, so they do have the right to know. That's the difference.
Yeah, it's a difficult line to walk, because you don't want to give away too much, and yet there is really a need for transparency because you have raised this money from the fans. So would it be fair to say you have in the past been offered the funding and then the funding has not materialized?
I've been offered the funding. It's fair to say that. I've been offered the funding twice and it hasn't materialized. One time, there was a serious conflict of interest that we found out at, I guess, what is it called? The last hour or whatever it's called, the final hour. I had egg on my face for that because it was something that I was so excited. And the other one, I'm not going to say too much about it, just they never materialized with the money.
Okay, so you effectively signed a deal or something, but then the money just never came.
The second one was about to be signed, and we found out pretty much that there was a huge conflict of interest. That was a red flag. And when I say about to be signed, it was because someone was delaying it being signed. And then we found out that person that was delaying it being signed was a huge conflict of interest. And it became one of those things that I was wondering, were they put there just to delay the project or not?
So the other one, where you said the money never came, so from your understanding, was there an agreement in place that money would be provided and then it just never came?
There was an agreement provided that the money would come when they got the money, and I don't want to put them on blast, but when they got the money, this is the first thing that they would invest in, and they're still here. We are almost a year later, and they're still waiting on that money.
Okay, so it was about a year ago that you did a live stream and you said you were fully funded. So was that what you were referring to?
I don't want to say too much, but that could be what I was referring to. I mean, look, I cried on that live stream. I was so happy that all this crap that I had gone through for the last 2 years was over, because it's been not only stressful, it's really finding that unicorn, the person that will invest in a project that believes that the quality should be up to the standard that it should be, when there's a lot of other projects that are doing it a lot cheaper, but you're like, hey, but this is Michael Jackson. Now I know what my uncle went through with albums. Like, hey, I'm trying to do this quality wise, but it's like, but you can make an album for this amount. That was kind of been the hardest thing, is getting people to be like, oh, well, this is what this costs. But I'm like, oh, but with Michael Jordan, it's this, and with other people, it's this, and Michael's that caliber. This is how we should be looking at. And so that was always the hardest thing, was the selling of that, but then also the weeding out of who legitimately was interested, who were the looky-loos, and who just wanted to get close to the family, is always the hardest thing too. And who was kind of connected to certain people that was like a red flag as well. It gets hard because your options become very, very small after a certain period of time, because everyone's connected in this industry. And look, the person that originally was supposed to do the investment and stuff like that, I'm still in good terms with them, believe it or not, and not in a bad way. I'm just saying, so they might be able to fund other stuff that maybe season 2 or whatever. I don't know, but I'm just saying, I'm not counting that out either. It's just, they didn't come through for this first round.
So I just wanted, because people, when they hear these numbers, 20 million, for example, for the Michael Jordan documentary, it's all a bit abstract. But having been on a shooting day with you a couple of years ago, I got an insight into a world that I had never previously been in, and the costs that are involved in a day's shooting. So for a day's shooting for a project of this type, you would need on set, in addition to yourself, a cinematographer, a lighting person, and a sound person, and potentially also a runner as some sort of assistant, possibly hair and makeup. So would it be fair to say the cost of a day's shooting is literally thousands of dollars a day that it costs to shoot if you're paying everybody that's working on that day? If
you're not a one-man band or one-person band, I should say, yes, 100%. For a legitimate, that's the wrong word. When I say legitimate, I mean in terms of like the standard of what is done, because yes, there would be hair and makeup, there would be a cinematographer, there'd be a lighting person, there'd be a bunch of other people that you didn't include in that way. And that was kind of the way I fought and wanted to make it. I said, if I have to do everything myself, I can do it because I've done it before, but that's not what my uncle deserves. He doesn't deserve me running around with a camera, setting up the lights, setting up the thing. I don't want to go that route. I can do it because I do that on our music videos. I said, but he deserves more than that. He deserves his own sound person. How would Michael do it? This is how he would do it in that way. And also you got to remember, without tipping my hand, there's a lot of licensing fees. And when you say the word Michael Jackson and you need licensing or to license material, you're not talking about Michael Johnson or someone that, it's like, oh, okay, well, it's going to cost this amount to just license this footage. It's Michael Jackson. So it's automatically 5 to 10 times more expensive in itself, just the license stuff. And I understand the fair use and all that stuff in general, but as your project gets bigger, the fair use thing kind of gets smaller too, because they expect you to pay.
Marcos, I'm sure Marcos Cabota was on this show when he said that fair use is a myth, essentially.
Yeah.
If you're running a big, expensive production, it
And they know
almost
you
doesn't
can
exist.
afford it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, Marcos is an incredible guy. I got to know him probably about a month ago. I saw him when he was in town and stuff like that, just to share stories and kind of get his advice and stuff like that in general, just because I always love hearing from other people that have shot something, and just a really good guy. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are myths that because people can do that on YouTube and get away with it. But also you have to remember, just the same way, it's like those people aren't under the radar of other people in that way. So they get away with a lot more, just the same way someone might put something up that they shouldn't put up on YouTube. If they're a small enough channel, or if they're a channel that's more abstract, people might not realize that. But if it's a big company putting that up, they'll get flagged right away, and they'll get, whether taken down or someone will come for a lawsuit for them in terms of that. So there is a difference in the playing field, and I'm playing with the big boys. And I'm trying to be politically correct, Charles, as well. I use words like playing with the big boys, and then I hear it and I'm like, does that sound bad? It's a saying.
Wait, you mean, like, does it sound like you're denigrating other projects that are being worked on?
No, I'm just so cautious of sexism.
Oh, right, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure you're fine.
Okay. I just, and I apologize to the fans and the public, because I am so cautious of that. But so many of the old terms of what we use in this industry is, guys, boys, playing with the big boys, and all that stuff. So I try not to be ridiculous, but at the same time, I still try to be cautious, if that makes sense.
In terms of licensing as well, I mean, a lot of people will have heard you say you'll be working to some extent with the estate. And when they hear you say the word licensing, they will be automatically thinking of things like music and music videos and concert footage and stuff. But of course, if you're tackling something like the 1993 allegations, almost nothing that you need is going to be owned by the estate.
Yeah.
That is all material which is going to have to be licensed from other broadcasters, from newspapers, etc., from Getty Images, from wherever it is that you're going to have to go to get that material. This is all stuff that you are going to have to pay for. Same with the trial.
I was going to say the trials.
Own for the trial?
Yeah, that's the trial, same thing.
Yeah. So there is going to be a huge amount of licensing, which the estate has no control over. They can't just gift you this material because they don't own it. They don't control it. So there are going to be gigantic licensing costs associated with this project.
Yeah, the licensing, I mean, you got to pay someone to find those things. You got to also pay someone to make the contracts for the licensing and all that stuff. So it does add up. But at the same time, one of the things that I really am adamant about is, let me say this. The first thing I'm doing, I'm making this for my uncle first. That's priority number one. I'm not saying priority number two, the fans, that you're not important or whatever, but priority number two is the public, because they're the ones that are the uninformed or ill-informed. I'm making it for the public to get the truth. And then number three is the fans. Now, saying that, I'm always conscious of the fans in that way and what is it in it for them. And so that is where the extra love comes in, giving the fans stuff that they've never seen before, or they've seen this footage 100 times, but have they ever seen this part of it? And that kind of stuff is the little things that the public would even know the difference, but the fans would know. Those are the little things, without saying too much, that I want to do for them, because I'm a fan. And there's been certain things that I've seen, heard, that I didn't even know existed, and I got excited about.
Like what?
I can't tell you, Charles. I stopped there on purpose. But I appreciate you asking. No, but that's the whole thing. Like, if I'm getting excited about certain things, it's like, I know that because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this man, his legacy. And when I see stuff that I haven't seen before, I get really excited, because it's almost like a Christmas present, opening up a Christmas present.
Okay. So firstly, when do you now say that you hope to get it out before the trial, but we don't know when the trial is.
I don't know when the trial is. That's why I'm not saying anything. Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely want it out before the biopic, which
Yes.
if it's not delayed, was supposed to be out in the third or fourth quarter of 2024, but it seems almost certain that it will be delayed. I don't want to press you into putting another deadline on it because I know that I hate when I'm working on something. I never make public when I hope to have it finished by because it's almost like a jinx. It's like a jinx.
Yeah.
So, and you feel bad. It makes you feel bad. But I mean, how rosy are things looking in terms of getting it done now? How confident are you that this is going to be moving in the right direction at pace in the foreseeable future?
Well, I don't know what number you want, but it's over 100% of confidence. I was debating whether 120, 130, 110. Like, I don't know. But in terms of, it was more important for me to do it right than to do it at all, if that makes sense. Because I have a standard, and I also am doing it for my uncle. That's my gift that I can give him for the gazillions of gifts that he gave me. So the one gift I can give him that I can leave behind for him and feel like it might balance what he did for me. And so you best believe I'm going to make it the biggest and best gift I can make it for him. And I hate that it's called a docuseries because it's implied. I wish there's a better word for it, because really what it is, it's like almost like a testimonial / revisiting of all these events, like a retracing aspect of it. But what I hate about the docuseries part of it is it's almost like, well, what about the other side? Are they going to get a voice? And I'm like, no, this is about the people that knew him best, and it's their voice. This is our story to tell. This is, we're telling the story of Michael in that way. And I wish there was another word for that besides docuseries, but really it's the people that knew him best, and it's firsthand accounts, and it's the people that were there for the allegations or the extortions, or there for the court trial aspect of it. I'm talking directly to the people that were involved, as opposed to someone that's guessing and looking from the outside in and going, oh, I wonder what this was like. Oh, it was this. And I'm talking to the people that were there, firsthand accounts and stuff like that. So for me, the docuseries really doesn't do it justice. And I hate to say it because it sounds biased, but I am biased. I'm a family member, and I lived with Michael Jackson and had majority of my life with this man in terms of with him around. So I know who he was, and I want to make sure that comes across. And so I don't need a stranger to tell me differently or try and tell me differently, if that makes sense.
Just before we wrap up, you mentioned earlier that there will be some degree of collaboration with the estate. Over the years, quite famously, relations between the estate and the family have not always been great. So how would you characterize your relationship with the estate and their attitude towards your project?
Very unique and fortunate. I feel very lucky in a way, not because they're aware of it and that I'm able to do it. I feel lucky because I was in this situation to do this. Obviously, as you saw with Leaving Neverland, you don't really need anyone's permission to do anything these days. But I didn't want to come across a roadblock either. So there were, I know Prince and Michael's kids, it was important for me to get their blessing. It was important for me to get my grandma's blessing. Once I had those people, that's when I announced, that I was doing it, because if they didn't want me to do it, I wouldn't have done it. And then the estate, I've been lucky because they've been very, what's the word? Supportive. I would say that's the word that I would use with this project. And that's why I said I'm lucky, because I know that's not the case with everyone else. But I also think they understand the importance of this project too. And they understand that the fans want this project. And I think that's why I thank you guys all the time, because you demanding this project is what has elevated this project. That's made me able to do this project as well.
How is your grandma? Because she was photographed a couple of times recently, and she's looking, in my opinion, better than she has done for years, actually.
That woman, I swear, like I honestly, I'm so lucky and I feel so blessed. I saw her at Janet's concert, obviously, when Janet was here in LA, or not LA, Irvine-ish area. But I mean, not to get too sentimental, but she's everything to me in that way. I mean, she's not only my role model, she was my mom's role model, my uncle's role model, my dad's role model. Everyone that I cared about, she was their role model. So you can imagine that aspect of it. I just talked to her probably a week ago and didn't realize that she had never seen Tylee yet. I forgot to send the picture and I felt like such a bad grandchild because I was like, I had to go back and look and I'm like, I didn't send her a picture. And I'm like, I felt so guilty because when Taylor was born, she was one of the first people to see Taylor, and then Toria, we brought her over, but it's just, you get so caught up with, well, maybe also because Tylee was born early. Maybe that's my excuse, but yeah, I felt like such a bad grandchild, but she's amazing. And as I say, I fight because of her too. I want, the urgency of this project and the reason there is an urgency is, yes, I want this out before the biopic, but B, I'm doing this because I want this out. And I'm not going to say it out loud, but I want my grandma, I want to watch this with my grandma, or at least her see it and tell me that she's proud of me. That's bigger than any award.
Now, you actually reached out a couple of weeks ago and proactively wanted to come onto the MJCast to have this discussion. So why was it that you wanted to come on, and do you feel that you have said everything that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to come on because I knew that Michael's birthday was coming up, and I wanted to I didn't really do a lot of the events, so I didn't have really much to say about that, unfortunately. But that was one of the reasons I wanted to come on. But at the same time, I really do understand a lot of the fans' frustration in that way with the GoFundMe and stuff like that. I hope they understand what this entailed, what this meant in terms of how hard this was to pull this off. Also, I did notice as well, which is one of the reasons that I stopped as well, was just a lot of the barking came from people that didn't even donate. And that frustrated me tremendously. I will sit there, and I've said this before, I will sit there and talk to someone that's donated for 30 minutes. I'll talk to them in general, or try and reach out to them to let them understand what's going on. But for someone that didn't donate, that's just creating chaos and problems, those people get blocked right away. But I hope that with all the lack of trust now that I probably garnered from some fans, that once they see it and once they know that the caliber and what I was going for, they'll forget these hiccups.
And why did you choose the MJCast?
Oh, you know why I chose the MJCast, Charles. The MJCast for me, well, first of all, I'm not doing any more live streams because I feel that that's an invitation for Dan Reeves just to take whatever I say on that live stream with video and just put it on Leaving Neverland 2, without my permission. I didn't want that. As it is, I'm not taking down any of the live streams because I don't want fans to think that I'm abandoning the project, because that'll be the narrative too. Oh, he's going against what he said because he took down stuff. So I'm leaving it up there as well. But at the same time, I don't want to give any more ammo to Dan Reed. He thinks he's ethical, but he's so unethical of how that thing was done that I'm scared to see what he makes me out to be. And luckily I'll have a lot of people come to my defense in that way that will make him look silly. But I'm scared of being that target. I mean, if he threw Brett Barnes under the bus for no reason whatsoever, just to pad his numbers per se, you can imagine what he will try to do to me, who was really a large thorn as the fans were too, which you guys should expect something from him too, the fan community. Oh, wait, sorry. To answer your question, the MJ, I love going on the MJCast. It's always been kind of my one-stop shop, of saying things. Always advise other people to hear it, to talk. And so, yeah, I just love the MJCast and in that way. And that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you. I was like, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to do it here first.
Well, that's much appreciated, and it's been great to have you back on and to chat about things, especially because I get bombarded also with questions.
I know
about
you
your
do
project all the time,
and
am legally prevented. I would reiterate.
Yes, you're legally.
You're legally prevented from answering any questions.
That's probably a good thing for you then. I'm not legally bound. So when I get asked questions, I have to just tell people, what it is. And I don't mind doing that.
Yes, I mean, it is a useful stock response to just copy and paste a sentence that says, I have signed an NDA and can't answer anything. But it is nonetheless quite annoying.
Bombarded. And look, and this is what I said. I understand people's frustration, and I love the aspect of that people are interested and want this to come out and are fighting for this to come out, because it is needed. It is tremendously needed, but it's got to be done right. I always look at my uncle with his albums. Like he delayed a lot of his albums because it had to be right. And people forget when albums are delayed or movies are delayed, but they have to be done right. And so that's how I look at things in general, is people will forget the tardiness of this project, because if it's done right, they'll understand why.
I did mean to ask you about that earlier. I was going to ask you, it popped up as you were talking. I thought, did Michael ever deliver a project on time?
No, and he had no concerns about it. Like, honestly, we would be there hanging out with him, and he's like, no, it's got to be right, Applehead. And it wasn't even like he would get these calls like, Michael, you're X amount of months later. Now you're a year late, and it didn't matter to him, because he knew he was making something that at the end of the day would stand the test of time. And so it wasn't about rushing it; it was about making it right. And he was right. Because you don't know, like, I don't know how late history was, or I know the earlier ones, the solo ones, they held his feet closer to the fire. But once Thriller hit and he had proven himself, he had also a bigger bar to reach. And so it had to be done right. I always respected him for that and appreciated that, because that's what it takes. Quality takes that. And I'm not going to make a project that my family is embarrassed of, or I'm embarrassed of. And I'm going to make a project that is a project that other people can point to and go, wow, did you see that project? Wow.
Well, that's a positive note to end on. So thank you for joining us.
No, thank you.
I just want to make sure we get in socials. As you know,
yes.
I'm a stickler for making sure we get all the socials in. So where can people find you on social media?
Oh, for me, I think is it Taj Jackson 3? On Twitter, I think it's Taj Jackson, or X, whatever it's called now. It's Taj Jackson 3. And then on Instagram, I think it's just Taj Jackson. And if it's Thread, it's just Taj Jackson 2, I think. Or not 2, the number 2. Just Taj Jackson as well, because it's same as Instagram.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm just checking now.
I know I'm not as good as the socials as I should be, and I don't even know what my TikTok is. I think it's Taj Jackson, but I've only posted one time there. So, and it wasn't a dance, Charles. It was the baby talk thing.
What's baby talk?
That was basically, it was a tape that Michael that I found of my uncle. Tape recorded me and him. He's 2 years. I'm 2 years old, and he's basically
baby talk.
Yeah, baby talk.
I thought you said baby talk, like TikTok baby talk.
Oh, baby talk, like a new channel. Hey, that's a cool thing too. Real quick, Charles. I know you're going to do your socials for the MJCast, which is very important as well. But
very, very important.
I wanted to thank all the fans because I hear more people supporting me and take your time, make sure it's right, it's for Michael, than I do the negativity. It's just negativity sticks to me. easier. And you can have 100 positive things and one negative, and you'll remember the negative. But I do appreciate the fans that have been so supportive, and I bumped into a lot of those ones in Vegas that were like, yeah, we're super excited. Make sure it's right. Don't rush it and all that stuff. And I'm like, so I hear that as well, and I appreciate that, because honestly, it's Michael Jackson. It's for my uncle. I've talked a big game, and I'm going to make sure I back it up.
So, I'm reliably informed. The MJCast is on Twitter, Instagram, Mastodon, Threads, and YouTube, drumroll, as the MJCast. So, if you want to engage with the MJCast on any of those channels, that's where you need to be, looking for the MJCast.
Nice.
Common sense, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, Taj, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you again for our traditional Taj Jackson Christmas episode.
Yeah, by that time I can spill some more beans.
Okay, right. Well, that's a verbal contract now. So
that's fine.
We'll hold you to that. Great. Thank you very much. Hope you have a good rest of your Saturday. Are you doing anything?
Probably, as I said, I'll probably watch some documentaries and stuff like that, study on some stuff. Good stuff in that way, but I don't want to spoil stuff for the series.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.